Have you ever tried bass fishing with Senkos? They are proven fish catchers, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, and you can absolutely screw it up and not catch the fish that you want to because you're doing it wrong. And that's what I'm gonna walk through today. Everything you need to know about Senkos and what most people miss that prevents them from catching fish. Let's dive into it. When I was 14 years old, I got my hands on some of the first packs of Senkos that were ever created. I didn't realize what I had at the time. The place where the Senko was created was literally on the lake that I grew up fishing all the time in Page, Arizona on Lake Powell. So my local tackle shops had some of the first Senkos that were ever created. I remember going to Lake Powell with my dad, showing him these Senkos that I'd picked up, and he looked at them and he said, "Those look like little floating pieces of poop. Why would a bass ever eat something like that?" I was young, I tied them on anyway. I didn't know any different, and I started throwing those Senkos, and wow, by the end of the trip, we had run out of them and we were anxious to get our hands on more. Now, it wasn't all just reeling in fish all the time. We'd have fish get off, couldn't really figure out how to work it right and rig it properly. And there were some challenges with those first packs of Senkos that I got, but I knew they were fish catching machines. And that's what I want to share with you today. I'm a pro bass guide now. 30 years later, I use Senkos all the time. And there's a right way and there's a wrong way to fish a Senko. And today I'm going to walk you through the big mistakes I see people make fishing Senkos all the time, so you can catch way more bass than you ever have before on the Senko. Let's dive into this. All right, let's talk about 5 big Senko mistakes, okay? These are going to be a little bit controversial because there are a lot of ways to fish a Senko. Everybody has their preferred method, the way they like to do it, the way that they've found the most success. But the reality is there's some general guiding principles for this bait that make it super effective when other baits flat out won't catch them. What I'm gonna do when I walk through these mistakes is share with you the principles of the Senko to know when to use it as a tool to be able to catch more bass when other stuff won't work as well. So that's really the crux to the Senko, is understanding the big picture of how it works, what it's optimally designed for, and then you'll be able to catch a lot more bass on it. So let's dive into this. Mistake number 1. Number 1. Flat out just working it wrong. I see this as a guide. I give people a Senko. They throw it out, they start twitching it, they start moving it, they're just working it along, and they are not catching anything. They do what they saw on TV, guys jerking their rods and stuff, and that's not how it works. I've seen this behavior in bass so many times, it's forever altered the way I fish Senkos. A Senko is a great way to catch cruising fish. So I've thrown my Senko out in front of bass that are cruising along the bank or on the boat, and you can watch them. That Senko will fall, and the bass will look at it, and they'll watch it, and they'll wait for it to hit the bottom, and then they'll swim over to it and look at it, and then they pick it up, okay? So the key to the Senko is letting it fall all the way down to the bottom without any action at all. That is a game changer for catching bass on the Senko. 90% of your bites on a Senko happen with that initial fall all the way down, waiting for it, coming to grab it, and that's when you catch them. So don't make that mistake. Too many people overwork their bait with the Senko. It's a simple shimmy, slight fall, and that's the secret to catching more bass on the Senko, is letting it fall all the way down to the bottom. Watch your line. See it fall, wait for it to stop, give it a couple seconds, and then reel it in. Let it fall on a slack line so it falls straight down, and you'll catch a lot more fish on a Senko. That's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is you're probably using the wrong color. The Senko is such a visual bait for bass. With those original packs of Senkos going out to Lake Powell with a variety of different colors, I was throwing a smoke color. My dad was throwing a green pumpkin with a chartreuse tail. we were up in some dirty water and I wasn't catching a thing, and my dad was just smoking them. We moved out into the clearer water and then I started smoking them. The key to the Senko is to realize you want to match the color to the type of water that you're fishing. If you're in dirty water, use those bright colors, the chartreuse, the white, the black, the stuff that stands out. When you're in clear water, you want to use the natural colors, the smoke, the green pumpkin. And then if it's kind of somewhere in between, then you throw out the glitter ones, you know, watermelon, red flake, green pumpkin, gold flake, whatever. And that's the key to the Senko, is you can literally not catch them because you're using the wrong color. I see it all the time. I'm a big believer in color because I've seen it way too many times make a huge difference, especially with a visual bait like a Senko. Go snag my free lure color chart down in the video description. It'll help you know what color to use based on the conditions you're fishing, and you won't have that problem anymore. Check it out. It's in the video description down below. All right, mistake number 3, wrong conditions. I catch a lot of bass on Senkos, but they don't work amazing all the time. You got to know what conditions to look for to be able to catch them on it. And here's what I've discovered. The Senko's superpower is its subtle, slow fall as a weightless presentation, okay? So you want, in order to do that effectively, calm conditions are the best. You know, if there's a lot of wind, it's going to be blowing your bait by. It's hard to get that slow, steady fall. If it's really windy, if there's a lot of current, you know, it's really hard to get that fall. And sometimes even really deep, it's not that effective a tool. So what you want to look for, the slick, calm conditions. Let that baby fall on a slack line and you'll catch way more fish. Cloudy, sunny, doesn't matter, but what you need is that calm water so you can allow that bait to get that good action. Now, I'm not saying you can't catch them in the wind by adding some weight on a Carolina rig or shaky head and dragging it, but ideally that Senko on the weightless presentation is what really triggers them, and that's how you catch them with that, is in that calm, clear, cloudy, whatever, just as long as it's calm. Got it? Water temps doesn't really matter. Obviously, the warmer the water is, the more active the bass are, and the more they're going to eat the Senko, but it really works in all kinds of water temps because it is such a subtle, sneaky bait. All right, mistake number 4, you're probably using the wrong hook. If you spend any time online, you'll see all kinds of weird ways to rig a Senko with all kinds of different hooks. Now, I'm going to go back to the principles here. You want the Senko to be as natural as possible, just falling subtly. And it is a visual bait. So the key to your hook is to get it as natural as possible to not distract from the action of the bait. So you can do this in 2 ways. Number 1, the wacky rig, okay? But don't use a hook like the EWG. Use a small size 2, size 3 octopus straight shank hook so it looks really natural. And another trick with the wacky rig is use clear O-rings to make that bait look really natural too. I do that a lot. I feel like it helps me catch more fish. You just hook it in the center. Smaller wacky rig hooks make a big difference so it doesn't distract from the presentation of the lure. And then the second way I like to do it is with an owner twist lock hook. You know, for the 4-inch baits, I'll use a 2-aught. For like the 5-inch traditional Senkos, I'll use a 4-aught. You want a pretty decent gap so that you have enough room to get that hook through that thick Senko into the fish's mouth, but also allow it to fall subtly down. And the twist locks actually preserve a lot of your Senkos. They don't come off the hook as much, so that's why I use the twist lock. And I'll fish it weedless that way around grass, around thick cover, around heavy vegetation, and catch a lot of bass doing that without snagging up. All right, mistake number 5, you're probably using the wrong line, okay? I have seen this so many times as a guide that it just blows my mind that people don't understand this about fishing line. You know, I remember a day I was out fishing with my dad, old school, back in the day, had an ugly stick, with some blue monofilament, throwing the same lure as my dad. My dad was out catching me 10-to-1. He had fluorocarbon, like a clear, and it just made such a big difference. Same bait, different line. One guy's catching them, the other guy's not. So always the Senko, because it's such a visual bait, you want to use 100% fluorocarbon line. You know, I usually use like 8-pound line, pretty light, especially on my wacky rigs when it's falling in open water. You want that thing clear, natural. Fluorocarbon also has a little bit of a sink to it, so it helps it kind of fall down. And then if I'm fishing at Texas rig, like I talked about earlier, I'll beef up my line if I'm in real heavy cover to like 12-pound or 15-pound. Just depends on how thick the vegetation is. But you gotta use 100% fluorocarbon. Braided line sticks out like a sore thumb. Bass see it and they shy away from it, especially in the clear water. So use the fluorocarbon and you'll catch a lot more bass on your Senko. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you go check out my other video here on mistakes people make with bass fishing jigs to even help you catch more bass on jigs. If you can catch bass on jigs and Senkos, you're good, man. You don't need any other techniques besides these two. So go check that one out. I'm sure it'll help you as well. And leave a comment of anything else you'd like to see, or questions or clarifications I can add to help you with your Senko fishing. As always, stay stoked.